way. Me can't find me girl named Faye. She must have gone with the boss DJ. Cause me no matter what the people of the world may say, but no matter what the people of the world may say, before me go a bed, me say me know me have it pay. She gone with the boss DJ. So much she gone with the boss DJ. Cause I want L-O-V-E love you. I want K-I-S-S kiss you. I want L-O-V-E love you. I want K-I-S-S kiss you. I woulda give you little love in Oja. I woulda give you little love in Oja. Because me lost me love up on the Queen's Highway. Say me lost me love up on the Queen's Highway. Me never get it back until the very next day. Never get it back until the very next day. She gone with the boss DJ. Me take away Carol from Errol. Me take away Sharon from Devon. Me take away Patsy from Ruby. But you make love go and you make love stay. But you bother feel no way and you feel it and when me say. So all you got to do, you got to forward to my door. But you tell you little girl I'm gonna give you some more. But no matter what they do, me say no matter what they say. Cause me lost me love up on the Queen's Highway. Lost me love up on the Queen's Highway. Me never get it back until the very next day. But you never get it back until the very next day. Me no lost me love up a Constant Spring. No lost me love up a Constant Spring. Me take away the Queen from the King. Come on, me take away the Queen from the King. Come on, now all you got to do your own thing. Come me lost me love up on the Queen's Highway. Lost me love up on the Queen's Highway. Me can't find me girl named Faye. Choma, me can't find me girl named Faye. She must have gone with the boss DJ. Don't you me search Kingston down to Montego Bay. Search Kingston down to Montego Bay. Me can't find me girl named Faye. I want L-O-V-E love you. I want K-I-S-S kiss you. Come on, now all you got to do, you keep on forward and true. But you tell your little girl I never turn my back on you. Cause you I love her, me say not another. You may a change, but I will never. Lost me love up on the Queen's Highway. Lost me love up on the Queen's Highway. Me never get it back until the very next day. But no matter what the people may do or say, before me go a bed, me say me know me happy day. Me drink soft drink, me no smoke craving. Cause me lost me love up on the Queen's Highway. Lost me love up on me Queen's Highway. Me take away Carol from Errol. Take away Sharon from Ian. Me take away Millie Jet from Fathead. Because me lost me love up on the Queen's Highway. Lost me love up on the Queen's Highway. Say all you got to do, you keep on forward to my door. But tell your little girl I'm gonna love you some more. Say 1, 2, I love you. 3, 4, I'm gonna love you some more. Say 5 and 6, I'm gonna give you.
Hello. How are y'all doing tonight? Are you dry and warm inside? Just a little bit. It's pretty cold out there, so I appreciate you guys coming out tonight. We're going to talk about some cool stuff. I'm going to kick off the night talking a little bit about the Farm Bill that just passed. So that's pretty exciting stuff. The Farm Bill was signed into law on December 20th, and it actually came into effect on January 1st. So these are going to be some important guidelines for us to go over. These are kind of like the highlights of what does the Farm Bill actually do. So what it does is it amends the Controlled Substance Act, also known as the CSA, so that hemp plants that contain 0.3% or less of THC are no longer a Schedule I drug. So that is amazing news that hemp is no longer a Schedule I drug. It essentially allows hemp to be considered in two different ways. Marijuana to be considered in two different categories. Hemp is the agricultural commodity now, whereas marijuana is the controlled substance medicine type of situation. They also will let the original agricultural pilot stay in place. So I don't know if you know this, but in the 2014 Farm Bill, they actually allowed for what were called pilot agricultural programs, which is where institutes of higher education could apply and start growing hemp through their research. University typically was how it was being dealt with. So those will still stay for at least another year, because what this essentially does will expand it past just research. Those people were only allowed to grow hemp and then do research on how does the hemp grow, how does it interact, and so now it's going to become an agricultural commodity as opposed to just a research commodity. Also, hemp would no longer be under the jurisdiction of the Justice Department. It would now move over to the USDA. Same people who take care of like the meat that you buy at the store. So that is a pretty interesting and important change. It also permits states that want to be the primary regulator to create a plan for production in their state. And the plan has to hit, 5, 6, 7 different topics. They submit it, and then the USDA responds to it within 60 days. However, if you are not approved, if the plan is not approved, there is no allowance for what they call non-federally recognized, non-licensed, non-commercial hemp cultivation. So if you are not licensed through the state to grow it, you are not okay to grow it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later when I get into the FDA's rebuttal statement, but essentially it is still a commodity you will have to register for. There is an interesting part that they have added to it that has to do with transportation of goods. So let's say Texas doesn't currently have a hemp program and there is some hemp product that is being transported through the state. It can't be seized. They can't stop the transportation of interstate commerce when it comes to those type of products and commodities. So if you don't adopt an industrial hemp program, you can't interfere with other programs throughout the country. There also are some penalties. So they have kind of two different echelons of what they're calling violations. One would be a negligent violation, and there's 2 or 3 things that they list out. But the interesting thing is that a negligent violation will not be subject to criminal or civil enforcement action beyond agreeing to submit a corrective action plan. So if you make a boo-boo, that's not a serious boo-boo, you can say, I'm sorry, I'll do better next time. That's nice. However, there are other violations that are more severe, such as disregarding the rules, growing THC-rich marijuana. Can't do that. And if you do something like that, then they will actually refer you to the Department of Justice or to the highest law enforcement of the state, and you'll be remanded to them for them to handle that. And unfortunately, I don't like these type of things that they add in, but it prohibits any person convicted of a felony related to a controlled substance on or before this certain date that they cannot participate in the program for 10 years. So if you were caught with possession, you cannot participate in the program for another 10 years. It's like double punitive. It says, so according to this, it says on or before the date when the Farm Bill passes. So that would have been before January 1st. It doesn't say how far before, so maybe we would have to do more research to answer that question. I don't have, unless it was 20 years ago, I don't know that answer. We'd have to read more.
Another 10 years from whenever they...
Right. That's my understanding as of right now. And of course, this is all kind of new stuff, and as things are being put in place and regulation is happening, we're going to learn a lot more about how things are going to function. But this is, according to documents that are being put out, reading the bill itself, and then some legal analysis that I also looked over. So then, once this happened, the FDA was very quick, Federal Drug Administration, to issue a statement saying, and this is a very important statement for us to understand, We treat products containing cannabis or cannabis-derived compounds as we do any other FDA-regulated products, meaning they are subject to the same authorities and requirements as FDA-regulated products containing any other statement. Then they went on to clarify further, it is unlawful to introduce food containing CBD or THC into interstate commerce, or to market CBD or THC as products or in dietary supplements, regardless of whether the substance was hemp-derived. This is because both CBD and THC are active ingredients in the FDA-approved drugs and are subject to substantial clinical investigations before they are marketed as food or dietary supplements. So whenever we're talking about the hemp bill, it's going to be directly related to the textile value, the hemp seeds, the hemp oils. But when you start talking about infused products like CBD gummies, for example, those are going to be under the FDA's purview. So they're kind of picking their territory and marking it, if you will. But this is a really big change, and it means a couple things for Texas. So in Texas, we currently do not have a hemp program. There are 40 states that opted into the research hemp programs through the universities, and we do not have one. So what we would need to do in Texas is either have the Texas Agricultural Committee or the state legislature put together legislation or regulation and offer it up to the USDA for approval. And then we would go through the approval process. Once that's instituted, then people can start going to get their seeds and start growing and start implementing those things. However, this is a very interesting caveat that I did quite a bit of research before this meeting because I was like, I can't believe it. If the Texas legislature or the Ag Commission does not create a program or a plan, then that means that Texas cannot grow hemp, because we don't have the regulatory structure to do it under. So it's going to be really important that we're tracking, how is this going to be moving forward? As you guys may remember, Sid Miller, who is the Texas Ag Commissioner, recently came out in support of hemp, saying that do I have the exact quote? It was something along the lines of he supports industrial hemp and the economic opportunities it will afford farmers. So I do anticipate that we will see something coming out on this, and it's going to be up to us to stay in tune and make sure that we are getting some good governance and making sure that the regulations are making it available for a lot of farmers, because clearly this is something that Texans are really interested in, so it's very important. All right, that's all I got on the Farm Bill. I'm going to be putting together a blog on it with all of the resources, and I'll put that out there. So if you guys have any questions, there will be direct links to the text itself, to some quick guides and other information like that. So I'll have that together. Next, I want to invite up Ms. Heather Fazio. She is from Texans for Responsible Marijuana Policy, and she's going to be talking a little bit about what we can expect in 2019 during the legislative session, what are our priorities, and also some of the important events that we are working together on. We're very fortunate to both be based out of Austin, so we get to do a lot of events, you guys. All right, help me welcome Heather.
Hello, friends. Let me move this up a little. Regular-sized person. Just kidding. Just kidding, my friends. All right, well, thank you very much for braving the cold to be here. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunity that Texas NORML has invited me to be here with y'all. The coalition we're working with, Texans for Responsible Marijuana Policy, is a broad organization that brings together folks that, like you guys, have been doing this for years, but also welcoming into the fold new organizations and new folks that maybe are a little bit more conservative and are just really getting on board with the good reasons to repeal marijuana prohibition once and for all in the United States. Many of our coalition partners are in favor of repealing prohibition entirely. It has been a blight on this country. It has caused far more harm than the cannabis plant itself could ever have done. And many of us do support those policies, but we understand the political landscape in Texas. And we have to stop the bleeding first, which is why we have two priorities. Number one, is reducing penalties for low-level marijuana possession. In 2017 alone, we arrested 66,000 Texans for the simple possession of marijuana. Not trafficking, not distribution, but the simple possession of a plant that we know to be objectively safer than alcohol, tobacco, and many prescription drugs that patients take every single day. And of those 66,000, an estimated 2/3 walked away with convictions. That means they have a lifelong criminal record that will follow them forever when it comes to access to education, employment, housing. They had their driver's license suspended. That's between August of 16 and August of 17, over 41,000 people had their driver's license suspended for marijuana possession, whether they were in, near, or around a car at the time of getting in trouble. Also, their license to carry, their right to self-defense, suspended for 7 years under current policies. These penalties are harsh, they're unreasonable, and a growing number of Texans, including our state legislators, are getting on board with reforming these laws. We also want to see the compassionate use program, which is unreasonably restrictive, made more inclusive for patients with debilitating medical conditions. Currently, as I'm sure that most of you know, it only allows those with intractable epilepsy to access low THC cannabis. It passed in 2015, and it certainly was a historic moment in that the legislature acknowledged that cannabis is in fact medicine, but it leaves behind so many people that can benefit from this plant. We see 33 states, including every state around Texas, that has passed legislation that allows patients safe and legal access to this medicine if their doctors think it's appropriate. We want to see Texans have that medical freedom as well. The compassionate use program can be made more inclusive by passing legislation this legislative session. We can do that by adding to the list of qualifying conditions. We can lift the arbitrary cap that's been placed on THC, a very therapeutic component of the plant. It's been made into this kind of boogeyman, and unreasonably so. You know, there are warning labels on every bit of medication that people take, that you shouldn't drive under the influence, you need to be responsible, and we trust patients with that responsibility. And we can do that with cannabis, just like it's being done, again, in 33 other states. Texans deserve that freedom as well. So we're going to see, already have seen, over a dozen pieces of legislation introduced. That was a dozen pieces in the very first week of pre-filing. And marijuana was the #1 issue that bills were introduced about in the state of Texas this year. Absolutely incredible, the momentum that we have going into this legislative session. The organization that we're working with has groups from all around the state, all across the political spectrum, and we're seeing all of the work that we've been doing for years. You know, the first time I was working with Texas NORML at the Capitol was 2012. We've been working on this for years, laying the groundwork for what is coming this legislative session, which is going to be success in reforming Texas's marijuana laws. So we have many bills that have been introduced. I'm expecting many more to come. And we're going to have to make sure that we're finding out what policies we want to support, which ones meet our priorities. You know, for example, when it comes to reducing penalties for low-level possession, there already are multiple proposals put forward. Chairman Joseph Moody, who's a former prosecutor from El Paso, has been introducing since 2015 a piece of legislation that we've been working with him on to institute a civil penalty rather than criminal penalties for low-level possession, completely decriminalizing, not legalizing, but decriminalizing small amounts of marijuana. And that's 1 ounce or less, which is what the vast majority of people are arrested for. His legislation, instead of it being 6 months in jail, $2,000 in fines, and a lifelong criminal record, it would institute a civil penalty that you could pay by mail and not have to worry about the lifelong criminal implications of a permanent criminal record. So it would eliminate the threat of arrest, eliminate the threat of jail time, and most importantly, eliminate that criminal record. Now, alternatively, there are proposals that would move it from a Class B misdemeanor, as it currently is, which is 6 months in jail, $2,000 in fines, and a criminal record, to a Class C misdemeanor. And while it certainly is good that we're having a conversation about different ways to do this, the problem with that approach, and the reason why Chairman Moody took the civil penalty approach, is because even with a Class C misdemeanor, while there is no jail time associated, it's at the discretion of the officers if it's arrestable, and we know that people will still be arrested, and communities that have traditionally been marginalized by these laws will continue to be marginalized by them through arrest records. And with the conviction, you'll take a conviction when you just pay your $500 fine. You won't think it's a big deal. It's just a Class C misdemeanor, like a speeding ticket. That's what a lot of people will think. But you send that check in, or you get on your payment plan, or you do community service, and you end up with a conviction, you have a criminal drug conviction for life still. And that hinders your access, again, to education, employment, housing, all of these things. So that approach doesn't hit all the marks that we want to see. So we're still backing Chairman Moody and his civil penalty legislation that earned support of more than 40 co-authors in the legislature. It passed out of committee with great support, bipartisan support, and it was for the very first time decriminalization was scheduled for a vote on the floor of the Texas House of Representatives. Now, unfortunately, we were beat by the clock in the legislative process, which just really was very disappointing, of course. But it was a historic moment in how far we made it, and it fires me up for how far we can get this legislative session when we're starting earlier, working harder, and coming together on legislation that makes a meaningful impact for Texas. So we have lots of legislation. We have a ton of people, right? A majority of Texans are in favor of reform. 84% in favor of reform in one way or another. And so what we are doing as advocates is helping to empower those who want to make a difference. So many of us want to see change in this country in many different ways, I am sure, because there is a lot to do when it comes to advancing liberty and freedom in this country. We have a lot of work to do. And on this issue especially, people have been for far too long afraid to speak up and not knowing how to do so. What do you say when you call a Texas senator's office? Where do you even begin? And people feel disempowered by that. And what we're doing by helping to host advocacy training events, working with coalition partners across the political spectrum, is to give people the tools they need, the effective arguments, how to look up your legislator, find out what do federal legislators do versus state legislators. We have a state Senate and a U.S. Senate. We have a state House and a U.S. House, and it gets confusing with all of these layers of government and who does what. And so having advocacy organizations helping to lead the way is helping to empower. Last time we organized tens of thousands of phone calls and emails to the Capitol, and I think that we can do better this legislative session considering the political climate in this country and in the state of Texas, because 2018 has been a tremendous year. Not only is our coalition growing of organizations that are state level organizations, national organizations, but we're also seeing organizations like the Republican Party of Texas, including, again, not only medical marijuana, but for the first time calling for a civil penalty for low-level marijuana possession because of our Republican allies working hard through their political process with their party to add that to their platform. So we're going to be able to see the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas on our side this legislative session advocating for reduced penalties for marijuana possession. And that's because of the hard work that people have done all year long. And add to that the governor on live television says that he's open to reducing penalties for low-level possession. Kind of felt like out of nowhere, because I'll tell you what, a lot of us have been feeling like we have been beating our heads against a wall with Governor Abbott, feeling like he is not budging on this issue at all. And then out of nowhere during the televised debate, not only does he say that he's in favor of reducing penalties and willing to work with lawmakers, but also that advocates, especially veterans and parents of disabled children, are making very compelling arguments. That helps to really re-energize people. It is working. The work that we have been doing for years is working, and 2019 is our opportunity to make it happen. So the legislature convenes on Tuesday. like this Tuesday. January 8th, we're going to be at the Capitol for kind of meet and greet. We're going to be having breakfast tacos thanks to Grav Labs. They very graciously sponsored breakfast tacos and coffee. We'll be there at 9 a.m. at the Capitol. If you join us, come early. Parking is going to be crazy because there are going to be 5,000 people at least in that Capitol building. So come early, get some breakfast tacos. We'll be able to help you identify your legislators, help to navigate the building, find out where the swearing-in ceremony is, which is in the House of Representatives and the Senate. There are galleries above each of those that we can help direct you to so you can watch your legislators be sworn in for this legislative session. And then many of them are hosting receptions in their offices. So you're going to be able to go and meet their staff. Oftentimes they have their friends and their family there, and this is a good opportunity to meet your representative and make a good impression. This isn't a lobby day. We're going to be doing lobby day next month. But this is a really great time, especially because most of us live here in Austin, that we can get to the Capitol and make a good first impression for this legislative session. So that's next week on Tuesday. The following Saturday, January 12th, and of course Texas Normal has this on their website and have been sending out emails for the advocacy workshop. We've hosted several series of regional advocacy training events to give people the tools that they need to be effective advocates. And we're hosting one right here in Austin, January 12th, it's a Saturday, from 2 to 5 p.m. at our Texas Capitol. All the details are on the Texas Normal website, texasnormal.org. And you can join us to learn about the effective arguments, learn about the legislative process. It is a gauntlet, y'all. It is very difficult to keep up with a bill becoming a law, and that's why we all have to work together to keep tabs on the legislation, find out when do we send our testimony, how can we share our story with legislators. We're going to talk about that as well as the legislative timeline on Saturday, January 12th. We also have, actually, I have notes here, so I'm just going to peek at my notes to see exactly if we have anything going on between the workshop. And, well, one thing that I'll add to this is on the 15th, we're hosting a luncheon in Houston. If you or any of your friends are in Houston and would like to join us for a luncheon at the Crowne Plaza, we would love to have you. We'll be doing that. We did one in Fort Worth. It's sold out, and we're looking forward to being in Houston as well. But then we have our big lobby day. If there's one day that you come to the Capitol during the 2019 legislative session, let it be February 7th. It's a Thursday, so talk to your boss, get the day off, plan on being there. We come suited up, dressed professionally, and we hit the halls of the Capitol to visit with our legislative offices to express why this issue is a priority for us, why our state needs to change these laws so that we can advance liberty and justice in our state. So again, that's February 7th. It's a Thursday. We're going to be doing lobby day. We'll have a brief training in the morning. We're going to break up into teams. So we are all going to be going together to do this. If you've never been to the Capitol, this is not something to be intimidated by. We're all going to go together to hit the halls of our Texas Capitol. Again, February 7th, that's Thursday. Get the day off and plan on spending the day with us. There'll also be an after social, which location will be to be announced. We also have our educational exhibit on medical marijuana that we're going to be doing, which is a week-long exhibit right in the Capitol hallways. We print giant exhibits, poster boards with different facts and figures. Medical marijuana is going to be featured from February 18th to the 21st. We're also going to be doing one on the criminal justice side of things. When we first did these exhibits, we did them all together, and it was a lot of information. And what we talk about all the time, we had to take our own advice. You have to separate the issues because the criminal justice side of things is very different when it comes to talking about that issue versus the medical side of things. And there's so much to talk about on all aspects of it that it really deserves its own time and attention. So we have February 18th through 21st, and all these dates are on a flyer over here in case you don't have one yet. And we're also going to be doing one on the civil penalties bill, and that reservation is pending. So we'll let you know about that as well. And of course, we're doing direct actions, which we started in September. You've probably seen us at the Capitol every other Wednesday, delivering flyers to legislative offices to keep this issue front and center, making sure we're putting a friendly face to the issue, making sure they know the new reports that are coming out, or the fact that the Republican Party just called on the legislature to reduce penalties for possession, keeping the information trickling in. Again, it's a low-pressure opportunity to come to the Capitol. We'll have the flyers, we'll have the maps, we buddy up, and we hit every office at the Capitol. Y'all have been there with us. It's a great afternoon. You spend about an hour at the Capitol, hit the offices, pass out the information, and you can even do it on your lunch break. So the dates are listed here. It's the first one we're doing of the year is January 16th. So it is the first Wednesday after our advocacy training event, and as tentatively scheduled for every other week after that. Of course, things may get shaken up because the legislative process, things get mixed up, and you have to kind of go with the flow and find out where opportunities are, when the hearings are happening, and of course, we're going to let y'all know about that. So I think that I have covered everything, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the leadership that Texas Normal has offered to this state, not only this year, but for many, many years. This organization has really led the way and set the bar on meaningful and professional advocacy at the Capitol, so I appreciate the opportunity to be working with y'all and for your dedication to this important cause. Thank you very much.
She knows her stuff. Okay, before I cover the last couple things, if you did not already sign up over at the table, we are doing a giveaway of a functional piece of glass art. So you just got to pop your name and email address inside there. We're going to be doing the pull on it and within the next couple minutes, because I'm just going to cover a few events. So I want to give y'all that. I see a couple people scurrying. Come on, get it. Get your name in. Get your name in. All right, there were a few events that were not mentioned on the list that Heather had, which she did mention. There's a print up of all of those events that she went over right there, and there's also a half pager on the policy priorities, so if you guys want to pick those up to take them with you, please do. But we just got confirmation late tonight that we will be putting on a veteran display in the E2 hallway. It's the same place where we do our educational exhibits, and this will be surrounding veterans and their request to have access to medical cannabis. We'll have the casket displayed that we showed at our last training, and we're also going to be putting out a video to go along with it, which will be playing in the hallway as well. And we are coordinating on that same day to create a Veterans Lobby Day. So that's going to be on February the 25th. Please mark that down, save the date. We'll have more information about that coming soon. Also, save the date for Saturday, March 30th. This is our regularly scheduled Willie Nelson event out at his golf course. It's called the Texas Normal Puff and Putt. We have live music, vendors, food, golf, disc golf, all kinds of fun. It's a great time, so please save the date for that as well. And then I also wanted to mention, if you were looking for something to do on April 20th, there's this little tiny thing called the Austin Reggae Festival, and it is going to be going on from April 19th to the 21st. Angela and her team does a wonderful job putting it together, and we're going to be there as well, so I hope you join us for that. We're also hoping to team up for something for South by Southwest, but that is to be determined. All those things are in flux right now. So, drum roll, please. May I have the names of everyone so we can listen, Linda. Give me them names, womans. Shake it real good. No favorites. No favoritism.
Favorites.
Is that one? That's one. Okay. Clint. All right, Clint, you're a wiener. All right, everybody. Listen, it's short and sweet tonight. I'll have that information about the farm bill out, and I'll post it in our event page for this, and I'll also post it through our social media, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Otherwise, stay warm, try to stay dry, and we'll see y'all next month. Thank you, Flamingo Cantina.
Never run away.